Hello and welcome to episode 70 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. This is Angela Rasmus. Oh my goodness, this conversation you're about to hear. Now, I know I'm tending to say this a lot lately because I seem to be connecting with the most gorgeous women to have these conversations with. But this one, it's going to blow you away, I'm sure. You will finish listening to this feeling uplifted and inspired and knowing that your life, your business, it is evolving, it is unraveling. The layers are coming through just the way they are supposed to. Susannah Conway and I talk about her journey into her next chapter. She's a blogger, an author, an e-course creator, a photographer, a creative spirit and soul who has had the most incredible experiences that she's been sharing with her audience through the blog that sort of just began and through those e-courses that came from a real life course before she realized that her audience was all over the world and therefore she could create her first online course. There's so much to share in this. We talk about how she finds and nurtures her ideas. She talks about how evolution is such a gift for us, that weaving our life experiences into our business is where it's at. Our businesses evolve just as we do, as I've spoken about so often. We really are kindred spirits, Susannah and I reckon you will be too when you listen to this conversation. And a classic quote, "You've got to do something you give a toss about." That's what she believes in business, and I absolutely agree with her. You know, business can be hard. This entrepreneurial journey, it's not all unicorns and buttercups and fairies. So you've got to be doing something that means something to you, that's important to you, that you want to contribute, that fulfills you. So those days when it's hard, when you're pushing the proverbial uphill, it's okay because there's a bigger why, a bigger purpose behind it. There's so much that Susannah shares. As I said, I know you're going to find it hugely inspiring, but a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. We talk about her Unraveling Your Year workbook and her Finding Your Word for 2018, and both of these are available on Susannah's website, susannahconway.com/word or /unravel. Now those links will be on the show notes page that you can find them easily as well, but definitely don't want you to miss those. They're beautiful things to work through. And also, I mentioned this at the end of the recording, but I want to grab you now as well, just in case you miss it. This is the last podcast episode for 2017, and I won't be back with a fresh episode until the beginning of February in 2018. Reason being, I'm taking the whole of January off to travel with my lovely family over to the UK and Europe. But I want to leave you with a gift. I know from women that have been in touch who have listened to all of the episodes, you're often waiting for the next one to come out. And I don't want to make you wait that long, so I have a gift. Before I started podcasting, I used to run tally summits. And one of those was the Second Act Success Summit that I ran about 2 years ago. Now you'll note the name is a bit different, Second Act. That was before I got slapped with trademark problems and actually changed to Your Next Chapter. Big lesson there. Wrote a blog post about it. I'll link to that one as well. But I want to give you all of those interviews to listen to and all of the transcripts that go along with them. To get that, I've made it completely free. It's no longer a purchase. You go to angelarasmus.com/success-summit. And there's just one thing I'll ask you to do. Whenever you hear the words Second Act when you're listening, just imagine that I actually said next chapter. So just change that word in your head as you're listening to these audios. They are, as always, very inspiring, uplifting, informative, practical, tangible, brilliant interviews with quite amazing women who have stepped into their next chapters in business and life. And I know you will enjoy them. And if you're a reader, and I know many of you are, every interview has also got a transcript along with it as well, so that you can read and pull out those kernels of goodness that are littered through all of those conversations. So that's my gift to you. So just go to angelarasmus.com/success-summit. Opt in and download all of those interviews for you. But enough of that. I really hope you enjoyed this interview, this conversation with Susannah, and I really hope you have a wonderful festive season, however you choose to celebrate. and have some time out and a bit of a holiday to refresh and renew so your next chapter can continue to unfold in 2018. Take very good care. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello and welcome to episode 70 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. I have been looking forward to this conversation all day, and you're in for an absolute treat with the wonderful woman I have on the line at the moment. Susannah Conway, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It was exciting when I send off these invitations to people whose stories, whose work in the world, the impact they're having, I know is going to serve as wonderful inspiration to my community. There's always that little bit of are they going to be available? Can we connect? Will we make this happen? And when your email came flying back to me so quickly and so wholeheartedly, it really gave me a smile that day. So thank you for that again.
Oh my God, anytime. Well, I'd seen you online before, so it was an easy yes, honey. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, where we like to start when we're having these conversations about next chapters is diving in and getting an understanding of what started you off down the new path. Now, I know you're a photographer, you're a blogger, you're a writer, you're such a creative person down to your heart and soul. But I always find when I'm talking to guests, there is a point in the past which started us off on a next chapter. Now, I often say these next chapters are built on skinned knees. They're not always great starts. They're not always happy starts. But there is often a catalyst that gets us moving in a new direction. And sometimes we can't even imagine what's going to blossom as a result. So could you talk to us about how things started for you when you went down this new path?
Absolutely. Well, I had no idea what was going to happen after it happened. In 2005, I lost my partner. He died very suddenly from a heart attack. And I was thrown into the abyss. That's what it felt like. And if any of your listeners have been through bereavement, as I'm sure many have, your entire life changes. Where I thought I was going, completely stopped. What I thought I was doing, ended. And I had to piece myself back together. And it's so easy to say that now, but it took a long time. It took a few years to really get back a sense of who I was and what I wanted, because everything changed. And the direction I thought I was heading in just went off in a completely different direction. So I'd started off in my 20s. I'd studied photography, I studied journalism. I was working as a journalist when this happened. And I had to been off work completely for about a year. First year, I was in therapy. I moved away from London. I was living by the sea, and I had to find myself. And of course, I hadn't really known who I was at that point anyway. And I think that was what made this such a dramatic change, is I'd spent most of my 20s being pretty unconscious. And as I think you generally do in your 20s, you're figuring stuff out, you're finding who you are. It's such a long process anyway. You're drinking lots of wine. It's this big mishmash of trying to figure it all out, and what are you doing with work, and figuring out relationships. So when this happened to me, and I was only 32, I was still pretty unformed. So to actually go through this fire shaped me so indelibly that everything I've done since then has sort of stemmed from that moment. So I started, after the first year of being in a cocoon, really, I crept out, and I was online, and I found this thing called a blog. And it was written by a woman in America, and I was reading it and thinking, wow, she's really sharing quite personal things, and people are leaving comments, and are they her friends? And it was just this incredible moment of, oh wow, I quite like this, and I'd like to do this as well. So I kind of stalked bloggers for about a month at the beginning of 2006, And I left a comment on one of the blogs I was really enjoying, and the blogger wrote me back. She sent me an email, and we started chatting. And she's still a friend to this day. And she said, Susannah, you should start a blog. And that, of course, that was it. So that was quite a big catalyzing moment, because I penned my first post on Blogger, and it just went from there. And for the first few years of blogging, I was doing it just as a creative exercise. It was a way that I could talk about bereavement, but through the lens of surviving it and moving forward, rather than as a memorial to the past. So I was sharing poetry and photography, got back into photography and connecting with people, and started basically growing a tribe without knowing that I would even want to do that. It just happened very organically, very naturally. And back then, I mean, Facebook was in its fledgling years. It was such early days in social media, really, that, you know, whenever you were blogging, you felt like you were sat around the kitchen table and everyone was chatting away to you and leaving comments, because that's how we could be in touch with each other. So this went on for a few years. And then at the end of 2008, I decided to move away from the sea, move to a new city. And this was my next kind of big moment. It was like, right, I'm ready to move away from my grief and kind of make this new life again, in this new place. And when I got there, I was asked if I would like to teach a evening class in photography, because by then my photography was blossoming, and I'd switched from film into digital and was sharing pictures online, and it was a very fertile period. So I taught this evening class, and they already had one that was all about, you know, technical stuff. So I did something a bit more in the field of personal development. And I had 10 women sign up, and it was the sweetest, most nerve-wracking thing. These 10 women would come along every week, and we would take pictures of ourselves and our lives, and we'd share them each week with each other. And we had so many breakthroughs, such beautiful sharing, that I thought, wow, this is something that I'm doing here. And of course, I blogged about it. And at this point, it's an evening class. It was in England. Most of my readers were elsewhere. So, of course, they started saying, well, how can we do this? Because this sounds lovely, and you're writing about these incredible things. We want to do it too. And at that point, e-courses weren't really a thing. I mean, there were a few out there, but in my corner of the internet, I didn't really know of many. I think there was one other woman that was doing one. And I thought, well, she's doing it. Can I teach? Could I teach online? How does that work? How are we gonna share our pictures? How can I replicate what we've been doing in the evening class, you know, in online? Anyway, I figured it out. I wrote about it on the blog again, and I said, well, I'm figuring it out. If you'd like to do this with me, you know, send me an email. I didn't even have a mailing list back then. And so 20 women wrote to me. I said, yeah, we'd really like to. And so I figured it out. I made a little web page. I opened enrollments very nervously. And I remember I went for lunch with my sister that day, and I said, you know what, if just like 20 people do it, I will be thrilled. That would be amazing. And by the end of that week, I had 100 women signed up. And it's because several other bloggers had talked about it online, and people talked about it, and people wanted it. So I had these 100 women signed up. And of course, I then had panic. And, how can I do this? And oh my God, ability, and who am I to do this? And you know, it took me a good few months to get through that. But anyway, I did. And I ran the course, and it was amazing. A beautiful, beautiful experience. And then I ran it again. And then I ran it again. And in the end, that one course ran 18 times over the years. And there are still women meeting up to this day that met through the course. So it had such an impact. And from there, I created a business without even knowing that's what I was doing. That had not been my intention. When I first opened enrollments on it, I had very little income, because I'd, you know, let go of the journalism side of the work I was doing, and I was trying to figure out what my next chapter was. Absolutely. So it was off the back of that little course and 3 years of blogging and building community that I created my business. And I think if I hadn't have had the community, obviously there would be no business. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to trip up these days. You know, they hear about e-courses and e-books, and I could do this and I could do that, and a membership site, and amazing. And they forget the piece where, yeah, but you need people that want to do it. And it's not enough just to do a few Facebook ads. You need a community. So unwittingly, that's what I'd created.
That's what you'd created over time, and that whole feeling of community. People were pulled towards you for what reason? What if you were saying, looking back with the benefit of hindsight, which is an expression that I'm really fond of, was it because there was a connection of the way that you looked at the world? Was there just a feeling that was running through it that you all felt and looked at the world in the same way? What was the connecting thread that you think brought these people together? The reason I ask that specifically is because I know that you've expressed on your website, for example, that your passion is helping others to start asking the questions of themselves, which open doors to new possibilities, to healing, etc. Do you think even in those early unintentional stages, you were already having people begin to look inside, prompted by what you were writing and sharing?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my blogging has always been about asking the questions and trying to figure stuff out. It's always been about personal development, and that was off the back of the bereavement. But going forward, I mean, I'm always trying to figure stuff out, and there are no answers other than the ones you can find in yourself. You know, there's a heck of a lot of gurus and spiritual teachers out there that say they've got the answers, and they haven't, because you have to come to your own conclusions. So yeah, I think in my first few years of blogging, I was all of it was about figuring stuff out. And I think my readers could see themselves in me. And also because I built a lot of connection, one-on-one, I was emailing with people, I was leaving comments on their blogs. I mean, it wasn't just me writing words off into the ether. I mean, it was a relationship.
It was interaction.
Yeah, I wasn't just doing it. I wasn't pontificating. I wasn't sermonizing. I was sharing my life experiments, if you like. And every time I figured something out, I was like, oh, I've done this, I've done that, or look at this, look at that. And it's very organic. It's never I've got a definitive answer here. Boom, there it is. It's an ongoing process. It's not just one chapter. It's a continual series of chapters in this never-ending book that is life. So yeah, I think people can see themselves in me because I'm just as messy as the rest of us. I mean, none of us really know what we're doing. But the lovely thing about getting older is you figure out, I can survive this. I think something bad happens when you're younger and you think, this is it. I will never be the same. This is the most awful thing. And then you survive it. And then something else happens and then you survive it. And suddenly you have the wisdom of your years behind you. And that is such an incredible feeling. I'm so grateful to be the age I am now because I know I can survive. And obviously even having the knowledge that I survived bereavement doesn't make any of my sadnesses now any less. I still feel things as keenly as ever. But I do have in the back of my mind the knowledge that I did survive that and I thrived through it. And that's the foundation that everything's been built on, really. So I can now say I consider myself quite lucky.
Yeah, and that's where that hindsight comes in, when you can look back and when you're in the midst of that pain. And we all know that pain. It may have a different flavour, it may have a different source, it shows up in different ways, but I don't think any of us get to these wiser years without having passed through the fire of some description and recognising that resilience, that strength that we have. So I can look back at some of the experiences that I've had now and recognise that I'm the person I am today as a direct result. Would have I chosen those experiences looking at them? No, not at all. But am I grateful for those experiences looking back at them? Absolutely. And it sounds it's the same experience with yourself. And I love that line. I wasn't pontificating, I was sharing my life experiments. And I think that's where that connection, that resonance, that honest and open vulnerability is what connects us so clearly with others. You're not preaching from some sort of a mountaintop. Come and sit down before me. I've found all the answers and I'm about to dole them out word by word, so take notes, people. Not at all. It was recognizing that life is messy, that we make, inverted commas, mistakes. Though, and sometimes I think even putting that label mistake on it is probably a little harsh. It's just that we try things, and when they don't work out in the way we anticipate, we try new things. And yeah, you're right. Our lives are stringing together all of those experiments into, you know, the mosaic or the tapestry of where we get to.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be on my deathbed and I'm still going to be wondering, oh, what about that? But I will have this beautiful memory bank of experiences behind me. But I always want to be questioning. I always want to be figuring it out. I always want to be opening. That's the thing. I mean, as I get older, it's less about what I look like. It's more about what's inside, what's behind my eyes. I'm so much more interested about, you know, what's going on within me than outside of me. So it's we're very lucky actually to be alive at this time where we have so many amazing tools to be able to do that, you know, with so many amazing authors and books, but now the internet as well, and we can see that we're all the same. It's amazing. It really is. I mean, for the amount of disconnection we have when we're so plugged into our phones and ignoring everything around us, actually there's the flip side of it. Yes. Where I can have a conversation with you on the other side of the world. How amazing is that? You know, I'm connected to so many different people, and I'm also experiencing their lives as well. I think it brings in this beautiful new perspective when you can experience the day of someone that you would never have met in a million years, 100 years ago. And I can see that, oh my God, you think the same as me, or you worry about the same things as me. And you may have different political beliefs or spiritual beliefs or whatever. But you still worry about those things that I worry about. So we are all the same. We all bleed. We all have to go to the toilet. We're the same. But I think
there's a great friend of mine who talks about her husband actually says to her, they all put their pants on the same, one leg at a time, love. So.
Exactly. We're all the same. We all want to be loved. You know, we're all scared of things. We all worry about failure. It's just so normal. It really is. And I hope that whatever I put out into the world brings a sense of reassurance, maybe, you know, that we are the same. That's kind of part of the mission, really.
It is reassurance and connection, and I also think opening our minds to possibilities, to what is possible for us, because I've certainly seen, and we were chatting before we hit record, about the thing that holds so many of us back is that self-doubt. And yes. I believe when we hear the stories of others and we hear that thread runs through everybody, no matter whether you started today or started 10 years ago, whether you've got a little tiny, you know, fledgling business that's been in your heart and you're now bringing it out into the world, which is scary, or whether you turned over 5 million last year, that doubt still comes along for the ride, no matter who you are and what you're doing. And I think hearing that truth can embolden us to take that step out in that new direction. And I think that's part of, I mentioned to you that I see you as a way shower. I see myself as a way shower. We can just stand back, open the door and say, hey, look, it's possible. You know, your version, but it's possible. And that's what I think is hugely our job as women, as Next Chapter women, to help other people open those doors for themselves.
Yeah, I think the work you put into the world is richer for having a bit of self-doubt, actually, because it means that you're not just doing it all from ego, going, hey, look at this, it's brilliant, buy it. I mean, how utterly empty does that feel? You know, I see so much stuff online where people think they have to promote it in a certain way. And it's all about, I've got the secrets. I've got 3 secrets that are going to give you a 6-figure business in 30 days. And you're like, no, you haven't. That is a total lie. And there's this idea that we have to be an expert with a capital E, and you can't show any doubt because, you know, you're selling something. And so you have to look like you have all the answers. And that's a very old school way of promoting things. And it's just, I can't even see that stuff now. I can't even give it any space in my head because I think, well, you're lying. This is bluster. It's not truth. And I'm much more interested in someone being real online. I mean, the word authentic gets used all the time, and I'm very tired of that word because that's also papering over cracks. I want to see real stuff. I want you to be honest, you know, be truthful. And tell me if you're having a shitty day. Great. I want to know that because I have that too. If you're struggling to write your newsletter, maybe that's what you should start writing about in your newsletter. Don't make it all glossy and shiny and perfect. I'm much more interested in people who are being real and who are genuinely grappling with the questions. And then I can see that they are also finding answers for themselves. I want to follow those people because I can relate to them, and that feels real to me. So if you're going to come at me with a super shiny website but no pictures of you because that doesn't feel real, or any of that stuff, like no, put your face online, let's see you. That's where personal connection, and because I can't sit with you in a room because we're doing it online, most of us, I think you have to put as much of yourself out there as you can, so you are relatable. I think the whole reason my business has even worked is because I'm relatable, because I can't lie. I really can't lie. It's probably a problem, but if something bad is happening, I talk about it. I've talked about my periods. I mean, everyone should talk about their periods. Your cycle is your superpower, ladies. Let me tell you. And I'm now looking at menopause and thinking about what that's going to bring to me in the next few years, and all of those things are fascinating to me. But yeah, talk about the real stuff. Show us that you're real, and people will listen. I think I see a lot of online entrepreneurs that start off doing the shiny stuff, shiny, perfect world, and then within a year, they suddenly completely change their brand and are being more themselves. And I think maybe, perhaps, that's the process of discovery that has to happen. You start off thinking what you should do, and then you figure out, I can let go of that stuff.
Yeah,
I can just be me. So yeah, I like all of that stuff, the me stuff.
And I think that's a really astute observation, that I think a lot of us start out thinking that there is a formula, thinking that there is a way of doing things, thinking that there is follow that, as you said, the 7 steps, the bouncing ball, whatever, and you'll get this result. And perhaps we need to start with some sort of a framework to give us almost like a structure, an anchor point. And then as we start to go down that path, perhaps if we're fortunate, we can relax into ourselves, and we can begin to accept and to recognize that no, Rome wasn't built in a day, or as I like to think, Oprah wasn't built in a day, and it's going to take time. But I'm really curious, because you have a number of different courses, online courses, self-study, sometimes live courses. The inspiration for those, if we look at the traditional, because we were touching on that before, the traditional marketing model, it's go out into the market, find a need, create the course and sell it. Like, that's the traditional marketing model, which is an improvement on the sales one. I've made it, I'll sell it. But yours comes from a different space. Yours comes from, it feels as though it comes from a place inside, an inspiration point. So can you talk to us about where does that inspiration come from with the different courses that you have? You talked about the first photography one, which was, hey, I'm in Arizona, you're in England, I want to do your course. So an online course made sense. But where did you go from there to create the other ones? How did they come to you?
It's always been a process of what I need to look at and what I feel my audience does. It's got to work in both ways. It's not just, I really want to do something, I'll put it out there. But equally, it's not just what my people want. It has to meet in the middle. So the first course was called Unraveling, and it was photography mixed with personal development. And actually, Unraveling remains the absolute spine that all of my stuff comes off of. It's about unraveling the layers of yourself. Absolutely. So from there, I did a couple of Unraveling courses. I did the first one, and then I did a second follow-up course. Then I created a traditional, in quotes, photography course called Photo Meditations, that I wanted to teach about how I take pictures and my philosophy behind it, and something, a more practical how-to course felt like the right next step, and it was. And then I think my next one was all about blogging, because that's something I'd been doing for years. And again, it's what people were asking me for. And that's always been the way the courses have developed. It's what people ask me for. And if I feel like, actually, I really want to run with that idea. And because creating a course is such a immersive project, I've never been able to get it all prepared and then I just launch it. I create it as we go. Obviously do the sales page and flesh out the entire thing, but I only get the first couple of weeks ready when we start. And I like to create the rest as we go, because I want to respond to how the course participants are experiencing the material, and I want to make sure I can adjust it. I would never assume to know exactly what they need. So it's almost like a collaboration, unbeknownst to them. So I did the blogging course, and then I did one about journaling, because I've been journaling since I was 11 years old. It's a very long time. So journaling, again, core practice that I have. And then what was next? I did Sacred Alone, all about meditation and befriending your alone time, core practice. And then I did a series of 3 courses looking at tarot and oracle, again, core practice. And I wanted to do those courses in a kind of non-woo-woo way. I mean, I'm quite woo-woo. I don't mind admitting that. But actually, the way I use the cards is in my creative practice. It's like a deck is filled with all of these possible journal prompts and pictures that help me look at what's going on inside me. It's not about predicting the future. So I wanted to teach my way of using them. That's a creative way of using them. So if I look at the path of all of these courses, they all kind of link up. And I have a lot of people that work through the courses in order, or, the next time one enrolls, they're on it and they're on it and they're on it and the next one, because it all builds up into this creative practice that helps you get in touch with who you really are. And that's all I've ever really wanted to teach and share, because that has been my personal journey, well, forever, but particularly over the last, 12 or so years. It's been this constant state of unraveling. And I want to teach the tools that help you do that. So whether it's with your camera, with your journal, with a deck of cards, with meditation. And then, of course, inevitably, I ended up making a course about online business. But I didn't want to do the old school, here's how you set up a business and I will give you the 7 steps. So what I ended up doing was creating hours and hours and hours of content all about how I've done it and how I run my business and the nitty gritty and my philosophy around my newsletter and how I create courses. And I wanted to do it in a way that anyone who's ever looked at my business and thought, well, how does she do it? I really want to pick her brain. This is the picking my brain course. And I put it out there and it's sold really well. And actually we have a Facebook group with it, and the people in the group are still connecting and are supporting each other. And I was like, yeah, this is the kind of online business that I want to be promoting. So again, each time I've created a course, it's been inspired by what's gone before it, and inspired by what people are asking for, and inspired by what I am thinking about. So it needs to have that really potent mixture. Because if I'm just thinking, well, I'm going to do a course about that and I'm sure people will love it, probably not. I need to know what they want. So every year I send out a survey to, check in with my audience and see what they want, what they're struggling with. What are they trying to figure out? And to find out if there's something that I can directly help them with. Because, a lot of stuff I can't. I'm not a mother, so I'm not about to do a course about motherhood, obviously. So I think you have to mine the stuff that you do know, and the questions that you're asking. Because actually, as you're uncovering stuff, as you're unraveling, you're going to be discovering stuff that you can share. And if you're a natural sharer, I discovered I'm a natural teacher, then get out there and teach, get out there and help. Because if we're all doing our bit, we can make the world a better place, which sounds so cheesy. Now I say that, but it's true.
But it's true, exactly. It's not
our bit. Yeah, if we all do a bit of unraveling, if we all try and figure ourselves out, we will stop reacting. We will gain a better perspective. We will be better mums and aunts and sisters and partners. It is about improvement. That's why we're here. Life is just this gigantic classroom. It's, sometimes it's a playground, sometimes it's fun, sometimes you get, football in the face. But we're learning all the time. Why else would we be here? So, yeah, always learning, always teaching.
I think that's the reason why I look upon it as an evolution rather than a revolution, because you're talking about the unraveling, the layers being taken off, and I feel the same about the evolving and discovering new things. And I think there's a couple of observations that I'm feeling listening to you talk about it. Number one is that it's beautiful to have a personal brand. This is my belief, like, because you're like using your name as your domain, whatever layer you next take off and unravel and find can be, inverted commas, marketed under your brand name, because
Absolutely.
it's so expansive, it's so inclusive. So who knows what is going to be unraveled in another couple of years' time in terms of that course or the next iteration of you. And I think having, this is so important, having the core purpose, the core value, the core focus at the heart of the business that then defines and informs what it is that you develop over time. Because as you're saying, you're unraveling the layers of yourself. And then all of the practices that you have created and the programs that relate to those, they all connect back to that central theme. So if we find that thing that is the, I guess it's the exploration for ourselves, we're teaching what we need to learn, we all know that happens, then that makes your business more cohesive. So I think, and you're not going to necessarily find it immediately. You were fortunate that it almost revealed itself to you, but
I was
it's an internal quest.
I was going to say, I didn't just, hit January 2009 and go, "Ding, I know what I'm going to do. Yay!" for the next, however long years. No, that didn't happen. It was a process of discovery. Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, it's lovely to be able to look back and go, "Oh wow, what do you know? That first thing was kind of my thing. I was right." And there's something to be said about, paying attention to your first inklings. But yeah, I mean, I started off with a blog that wasn't called my name, and then it took me about a year to then finally bring a website together under my name and to be comfortable sharing my name. And, I mean, it's a process. It would be lovely to think you could just come out in this perfectly packaged version of you that's, you're going to be holding on to forever. That doesn't happen no matter what all these big, business teachers tell you. I mean, and also the whole personal branding thing. It took me many years of being online to even feel comfortable having a photo shoot with some pictures of me. It's not my favourite thing to do. I can think of other things I'd much rather do. Also, being a photographer, I hate not having the control. That does my head in. But I think but you need you want a few professional shots just so you can, whack them on the internet and go, there you go, there's my face. I'm a real person. Yeah. But then back it up with, behind the scenes on Instagram. It drives me nuts to see a lot of, particularly coaches. Coaches are guilty of doing this at the moment, where all the pictures they share on Instagram are all professionally taken. And I know that makes life easier when you're like, well, I've got to be on Instagram, I've got to share photos, I don't really know how to take pictures. I know, I'll get some lifestyle shots done and then I can use them. Well, that's a very clever thing to do, but it ends up making your business /brand/you look really generic. Because everyone's doing that, it gets a bit boring. And I'm like, oh, look, it's another photo of you laughing, holding a coffee mug. Brilliant. Oh, you really stand out. It's just, that does my head in a bit. Because I think, well, you want to have a bit of flavour of you. What does make you different? Are you really into romance novels? Brilliant. Share your top 5. Tell us something that makes you stand out. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm a skydiver. It can just be the most mundane thing. But what's important to you? Don't just be a generic coach or / whatever it is you do. So the personal brand thing, absolutely. It took me a few years to really piece together the idea that, okay, my website is just my name. My business is Susannah Conway Limited, obviously in the UK. That's it, because then I can have all these different pieces hanging off that main branch. Because for the first year I thought, well, should I buy unraveling.com? Is that what my business is? But I would have narrowed the scope of what I could do so massively. But then that's that classic thing. You've got one course and you're like, oh, that's it. That's all I need, man. I'm going to do the Marie Forleo B School. I just need one course and that will set me up for life. It's like, well, that's a very different way of doing courses and teaching. Actually, I couldn't just hang my hat on one thing. I mean, I'd be so bored anyway. I am interested in many things and there are many layers to what I'm doing. So just be bold, use your name, just own it, just do it, because you will eventually change it to your name and then you'll want to change all your different social media handles and it's going to be a pain in your ass. So absolutely, just go with your name. Keep it simple. keep it simple, use your name. So yeah, that would be my number one piece of advice, because I struggled with that the first year, and then I just relaxed into it. So it will save you a lot of time. Just do it. Don't even think about it.
Yeah, I did the same thing when my prior life, one of my past chapters was Ideas into Action, which was my marketing agency where I had staff and an office and all of that stuff. And relaxing into, letting go of that. Oh, believe me, I didn't realize I was holding my breath until I let go of it and realized I could breathe again. But then rebranding under my own name. And that first year after I closed the agency, I was all over the place. I was a life coach instead of a business coach. And then I was a wholehearted business mentor. And then I was a compass and catalyst. I was all over the place. It was exactly that. I was trying to find my way. And at first I was trying a bit hard. I was trying to force it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm very much into the curiosity, into opening the doors, but I was trying to figure it out as opposed to feel it through. And when I sort of let go a little more and started to, follow that, what calls me, what do I believe, what is important to me? Because I don't think, I know we talked before that the word authentic is a bit overused, so let's go with real, but it's the same sort of thing. And unless you actually do connect to the things that matter to you, I don't believe you can create a sustainable business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you've got to do something you give a toss about, basically. Yeah. I could think, do you know what? I'm going to make loads of money if I do a course about bookkeeping. Awesome. I'm going to get all the books. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn it because that's going to be lucrative. I mean, I couldn't care less about bookkeeping. I have a wonderful bookkeeper that does it for me because I'm rubbish at it. So you follow your inspirations, but allow it to take time. I think that's the other thing. There's this expectation. There's an expectation in life that you leave school with good grades and then you go to university and then you fall in love and you get married and you buy a house and you have a baby and and it's perfect. Well, life isn't like that for 99.9%. Doesn't work like that. And yet we have this same expectation creating a business. Well, I'm going to create a business that's going to be so successful and it'll have the perfect name and I know who my client avatar is and and it's all wonderful and I'm going to know immediately. No, that doesn't work that way either. And actually it's this process of, like you say, it's an evolution. You're going to be constantly changing within your business because your interests, your skill set, your audience, your age, I mean, all of these things change every year. There's always a new piece to be discovered. And actually that's what makes it enjoyable to do this work, because it's not just, I mean, God, if I had to teach the same thing forever, I'd go insane. If I was still teaching Unraveling now, oh my God, I'm so glad that there has been an evolution. I am learning more. I'm getting better at teaching. I'm getting better at, looking after my peeps. So, I'd never want it to just be this static one version and that's all I will ever be. There's always going to be a change. It's that classic thing of updating your bio on your website. Every time you sort of tinker with your about page and every time you get a little bit more clarity about what you're actually doing. I mean, I've only recently spruced up my bio in the last few months. I've been doing this for a decade, nearly a decade. So, there's a constant evolution and it's amazing. And I think it's a gift really, because you can weave your life experiences into your business. You might not be doing, personal development or coaching or whatever it is, but you can still bring you into what you're doing. My favorite thing when I buy anything is to look on the about page. I want to see a picture of who has made this thing that I'm investing in. Personal connection can be done in so many different ways. And it's the core of online business, I think. I don't want to just be a web page, a generic web page that means nothing to anyone. I want people to come to my website or read my newsletter and go, oh yeah, she feels it too. I feel less alone. That's all I want. Yeah,
connection, community, knowing that you're not alone. And there's one of the best quotes from this conversation, hashtag you gotta do something you give a toss about. That
really
one's set in stone.
The thing is, you've got to do this stuff every day, so you better love it, you better enjoy it, otherwise it's going to feel like such drudgery. You know, you will resent this beautiful creation that you've made. You will. I mean, I have days when I can't be bothered, just like anyone. But most of the time, I wake up and I'm like, I want to get on the internet because I want to see what's going on and I want to make something. And I love those days. So that's the whole point of being self-employed. Is you create your work, you create your day. You can work in a way that suits your personality as well. I mean, I'm an introvert. I'm a very confident introvert, but you know, I like being at home. I'm not hugely sociable. You know, I'm a very inward-looking person, and I draw my energy from time alone. And so having an online, you know, self-employed business is perfect for me.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I can get up when I want to get up. I can work late into the evening if I want to. I can work in a coffee shop. I've been doing that a bit more this year. But I can work, you know, fit my business around me. I'm not working for my business. My business is working for me. And it's a blissful thing, because I truly never want to be in an office at 3:00 in the afternoon wishing I could go home. And I had many years of that. So
that's behind us. That's behind us. Thank goodness. It's funny, actually, the vein of this, that I was running one of my mastermind calls earlier this evening, finished off at 5:30 this evening. And one of the things that we were talking about is a belief that I have, which is that your business needs to serve you just as much as it serves your clients. That's where sustainability comes from. We were talking about how one of my particular clients was putting together her packages and her approach to what she's going to be offering the market in the new year. And that had to be the litmus test. Are you excited about it? Does the idea of actually delivering this, creating this and delivering this excite you? Does it feel good? Because if it doesn't, then we've got to look again.
Absolutely. You've got to be completely obsessed with it. That's how I know. That's how I choose the next course to create or the next thing to do. I have to be obsessed with it. And this happened to me last night. So today I have a deadline to finish writing an article. I have a column in a magazine. And to be honest, everyone, I'm not feeling it this month. My inspiration banks are a bit low, and it's probably the time of year. And then last night I got a thread of an idea and I started writing it down in my notebook, which I keep by my bed always.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about this idea for a course that had hit me in the morning. I mean, best ideas always come when you've got a deadline for something else. And then you get the new idea. You're like, oh my God, I want to run with that. Look at that shiny thing. But I did. And so I was up until the early hours again, writing down all these ideas for this new course I want to do. And that's how I know that's the direction I should be heading in, because what tends to happen is I'll spend months, I call it composting. So I have, you know, I read books and I'm doing stuff and I'm just generally gathering the mulch, gathering the ideas and the inspiration, and I'm putting it all in my journal and letting it compost down until it starts becoming something. And then finally this little seedling of an idea will appear. And then I start watering it and you know, writing into it and finding out what it is. And then I become obsessed. And then I start talking about it with my people. And then I suddenly create a sales page and boom, a new course is born. And that's how it's always happened. But you've got to be obsessed with it. You've got to want to skip dinner because you're so busy writing or creating or drawing it or photographing it or stitching it. You want that feeling, because that's when you know you're on the right path, because then you're gonna create something good because it's coming from that genuine lovely place. If you're doing it because you think you have to, it's going to take 5 times as long and you're probably not going to launch it.
Completely different energy. Different energy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Oh, Susannah, this is the conversation that I knew that we were going to have. I checked out the crystal ball before I jumped on the call. Joking. I'm woo woo as well, but I'm grounded woo woo. And I loved actually your approach to the cards. Like I personally don't have tarot cards. I've got lots of other cards though. And I use them to help me interpret what it is that I am feeling, because the thoughts.
Absolutely. Yes.
Those thoughts.
Sorry, I'm just going to keep talking over you. See, I told you I'd get excited. This is why my tarot course is called 78 Mirrors, because there are 78 cards in the deck, and I see each card is a mirror reflecting you back to yourself. You know, it's not telling you the future, although, you know, the cards can be a bit out there sometimes. You're like, wow, that's incredibly spot on. But generally, I look at this image, and I'm like, well, how does that make me feel? Or how is that reflecting me back to myself? and then I just start writing in my journal, and it's incredible. What a magical, brilliant, useful, and actually quite practical tool they are. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm not adverse to it. Whatever tools help you access your insides are good tools. You know, they really are. It's just mine. You've got it all inside you. It's all in there.
Yes.
It's all within you. So,
It's the idea of the internal Googling before we go to the outside.
Oh, that's good. I've heard that one before. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Google your insides. It's all in there.
Because we have such a tendency to go externally, and that's probably one of the lessons that I've had to really be aware of and really internalize, is this concept that your first action is always to look outside for the answers. Someone else must be doing it. There must be a way. And I've had to learn to pause, hit the pause button. Take a breath. I do a lot of journaling as well. It's one of what I call the bookends of my day. I start with journaling in the mornings because my brain is not a filing cabinet. It needs to get things out. I need to get things out onto paper. I'm waving my arms around. Can you feel that as I'm explaining this?
I am so there with you, my sister. Yes.
Yeah, it's so important. But I love this concept. Okay, we're Googling inside. We're looking for, or when we're using the cards, they're ways of mirroring back to us and highlighting and illuminating what we're feeling anyway, bringing it to the surface. And it's one of the reasons why, and I want everybody to know about this if they don't already, your Unravel Your Year booklet, workbook that I've got in front of me, on page 26, you ask us to do the 2018 forecast, and I've got all my cards out. And interestingly enough, the one that I pulled for the theme of the year was play. And I thought, I quite like that. Yes, there's something a bit fun going to happen this year. I've had a couple of very heavy years. So one of the my word for the year, which I also worked on through your beautiful work, is kindness.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
Yeah, that needs to be. I love to, and everyone listening, we're going to point you in the direction of how you can get your hands on this workbook and the Choosing Your Word and Wordser for 2018. But I loved the way that you approach it with, do you need an inward-looking or an outward-focused word? Do you need a word that is more action-oriented and energetic, or do you need a word that is more nurturing and more gentle? And when I was working through that and feeling into that word kindness kept coming up again and again. You need to be kind to yourself. Anyone who knows me knows that I have a tendency to be a little hard on myself, have quite high expectations. So I'm looking to soften that. Doesn't mean that I won't obviously still be, making inroads in my business, taking care of my clients and all that stuff, but it has to start with me. It has to start with taking kinder care of myself, kinder regard in 2018. And the very first card that came up in this forecast in the book is listen. And that made me think it was about listening inward. And the next one was heart chakra. So I was like, okay, it's all making sense now. Thank you, Susannah.
I've got the chills, man. You see the cards, I'm telling you. People poo-poo them, but there's something there. There's something there. And it's funny because, you get the right card, the wrong card, it doesn't matter. It's how you look at the card and what it makes you of. It's a really nice, active, practical way to access your intuition. And we all have that small, quiet voice inside us, but it gets so drowned out. We don't always trust that we could possibly know the answers. Because, like you said, our first response is, well, where are the books? Where's the expert? Where's the person that's me? Where's the teacher? Oh, I've got to ask my teacher. I've got to ask my mum. And actually, I think we just about make it through childhood, and then we spend the rest of our lives figuring out that, oh, I'm the teacher. I'm the mum. I'm the person I can rely on. So any of these tools that help us access that is brilliant. So kindness is a beautiful word to have for your year, because you can just in every moment, well, what would kindness do right now? What would be the kindest thing to do right now? And kindness isn't a kind of floppy passive word. Kindness in action could carry you through the next 12 months and be totally miraculous. I mean, that's beautiful. Well, I can tell you my word for 2018 is inspired. Oh my God, I want to feel inspired. And it came to me, and it's funny because I've created the Find Your Word course, and it's just 5 days. But I wanted to make a little process because people were constantly saying, yeah, but how do you find your word? I don't know how to do it. So I thought, right, okay, I'll make a process, because this is how I usually do it. And I think on the first day, one of the questions, or two of the questions, are what do I need more of, and what do I need less of? And I only needed to ask myself that to get my word. It was quite interesting, because sometimes it can take longer than other times. But no, I want to feel inspired. I want to feel inspired by my work. I want to feel inspired by the conversations I have with people. I want to feel inspired by the new love in my life. I just want to feel I'm so ready.
I can hear it.
Yeah. Do you know, it's going to be quite an active word for me this year, and this year we're nearly there, and I'm really excited about it. Like, genuinely on tenterhooks, to just get on with it. I've got a new notebook, my inspired notebook. I've got a new Pinterest board. I'm like, bring it on. So
we always need a new notebook. I mean, the beauty about that word is that it feels very buoyant. That word feels like it's lifting. It's lifting you, and then you will have that. I feel
happy just saying it. I feel really happy. So that's going to be a lovely word. And interestingly, my word for 2017 was seen, SEEN, seen. Mm-hmm. And as usual, it has come about in ways I didn't expect. I mean, the beginning of the year started with someone inviting me to do a TED talk, which just made me laugh, because it was an absolute and very easy no to that request, but it just made me laugh that, oh, how funny, is that the way the year's going to go? And it ended up with September, I was seen by a very beautiful cat that decided to move in with me.
I remember that in your newsletter. I remember the photo of the cat. It's adopted.
She's still here. Yeah, she's completely adopted me, and it's been a process. Obviously, I didn't just assume this was my cat, but as it's turned out, she's become mine. So it never kind of goes how you think it will, and yet it always works out perfectly. In 2016, my word was love, and off the back of truly desiring a new relationship, I'm like, I'm ready. I've done the work. Bring it on. Yeah, let's just do the word. Let it be love. And then actually it turned out by the end of the year that the reason my word was love is because my baby nephew ended up going into hospital for 6 weeks. And I was there when it happened, and I stayed at my sister's house looking after my eldest nephew for 6 weeks. And it was love that got us through that time. And the baby is now nearly a 2-year-old, and he's okay. He has long-term problems, but he's okay. And it was love that brought us through that time. And I got to December and thought, oh my God, I think that is possibly the most powerful word yet, because it turned out to be what I needed. And I learned yet another layer of what love means. So it was a painful yet a beautiful experience to have. So yeah, these words, man, they are powerful.
They got power, that is for sure. Well, let's as we're drawing this gorgeous, inspiring conversation to inspired conversation to its natural close, where can we find these booklets, these courses, the Unravel Your Year and the Finding Your Word? Doesn't matter if you're listening to this interview at a different time of the year, you can always hit the pause button and start to unravel wherever you are. Absolutely. So how do we find those, darling?
Absolutely. Well, the Unravel Your Year workbook, you can go to my website, susannahconway.com/unravel, and it's there, and that will be available pretty much all year, I reckon. Might take it down in June when I create a mid-year check-in, but we'll see. But it will be available in the Inspiration Library. So when you sign up for it, you'll be added to my mailing list to get my fortnightly love letters, and attached to that is the Inspiration Library with lots of ebooks, and there's some audios and meditations and desktop wallpapers and places and things to inspire you. So yeah, it will also be in there. And then Find Your Word. The word finding course is susannahconway.com/word. So nice and simple. It's all there. It's all there for you, and obviously it's all free. You don't have to pay for it. My God.
No, that is fantastic. I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes on the page so that everyone can find those easily, and they can start unraveling, looking back with hindsight as to what's happened in this year, so that they can then begin to create the new possibilities for 2018.
Perfect. Yes. No, it's Unravel Your Year this year is 62 pages, which sounds quite intimidating when you're doing it for the first time, but a chunk of that is a calendar and reflection questions for each month. So this is something that you can start now, and actually you can check back in throughout the year. So yeah, this is a nice way to practice a bit of extra mindfulness as you go through the next 12 months. So yeah, enjoy, dig in.
Absolutely. I took mine down to Officeworks here in Australia, had it printed out and bound, and it is sitting beside me like a compass.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely, you want to print this stuff out. I use blurb.co.uk, or I think it's also .com, to get mine printed out like a magazine. So it looks really fancy. It's like £10. But no, I love having it in physical form. Yeah, absolutely. Planners and journals, and bring it on. It's all the good stuff. So, yeah.
No, it's beautiful. Thank you. And look, thank you so much for this conversation. It's just been buoyant and adventurous and wholehearted and inspired and all of those things in between. This is when we first started to talk, I said that your and my job is to inspire possibility in our listeners and our audience. So I believe we have done that admirably today. And thank you so much for sharing so openly about the path and how that the path winds. There is no straight path. There is that process of evolving, of unraveling, of taking the layers off and moving more and more into the person that we're here to be, to have the impact we're here to make, which is so individual.
Yeah, the path winds. I love that. And you just got to go with the twists and the turns. It's okay. Just be flexible and let it unfold. Yeah, no, thank you for this conversation. It's been a beautiful way to start my day. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So we will stay in touch, undoubtedly.
Definitely.
And to you, my lovely listeners, thank you again for choosing to spend your time here with the Your Next Chapter podcast. I hope, I believe, I trust that you will take a kernel of inspiration from today's conversation and then nurture it. You heard Susannah talking about that seedling that just pokes its way up through the compost. Well, compost the ideas that you've heard here. Find the one that really touches you, that really brings up that feeling of delight and enthusiasm, because enthusiasm is currency. You need to follow your heart to build that sustainable business, that's next chapter business, that's inside of you, that is waiting to come out. As we just talked about now, it may not happen overnight, but if you do tune into that internal Googling, as I think we called it today, then those possibilities are endless for you. And I can't wait to see what unfolds in your next chapter. Now, this is the last podcast episode for 2017. Again, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I'm going to have a little bit of a break. I'm actually going over to the UK for almost a month with my family to visit friends and family, and so there won't be a new podcast episode until the new year. There will, however, be a gift on this podcast page to keep you going through January with some audios from my Success Summit that I ran before I was podcasting. So if you visit this page, which will just be angelarasmus.com/70, you'll find a link to that audio gift so that you can still hear the dulcet tones of my voice throughout January if you're really looking for continued inspiration before the new episodes start again. So thank you for your time. Have a wonderful Christmas and holiday break, and I'll be back with you again in the new year. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelarasmus.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.